few information before we start. At the end of the podcast, you've got breathing practice. I highly recommend to start from it to get a deeper experience of a talk, but it's still just an option. First few seconds is a teaser for you to see if the podcast is for you. And also I want to do quick apologies for technical issues. There were some, but I still decided to upload it because there's really plenty of valuable information. So that's it. Enjoy listening.
We worship what we pay the most attention to. That's how we worship. There's an intelligence in my body of how it fires neurons, how electricity moves through me, how cells die and are reborn, how waste products move through me, how the chemical reactions in the gases that I breathe in. I have no idea.
Then like the analytical knowledge, the rest, it's gonna come like way easier. And it was also my case. I thought I have to understand the life before I live it. And it's like totally opposite.
To this part of the body, and it's speaking back to me. There was a way of engaging with the work that could not be translated by purely anatomical concepts, because we don't know what life is about anymore. And to try to answer what life is about, what the proper orientation and direction is, what would it mean to live a good life?
Like being able to stay on something for longer, being able to create instead of consuming, it's the essence of our humanity.
We can't change or transform what we can't feel. Because someone can want transformation, but if they can only pay attention to me for 3 seconds, the chances that any transformation is going to be possible is very low.
Religion, and it's in our nature. It's part of us. It's gonna happen anyway. If we're gonna say that sun doesn't exist, it won't make sun disappear. So now let's get back to the beginning. So good to have you here, Carlos. And I just start like from briefly telling how do we know each other? Like, I remember first I was just curious of your work. I didn't understand fully what you're doing, but I was attracted to that. Like, I saw some glimpses connected to the other method that I worked with. Those methods like movement, the one that you talk about as well, for example. So like the way I understand it back then was methods to regulate your nervous system and how to work with pressures, basically to stabilize your body from the inside. That's the way I understood your work at the beginning, but same time there were like something more in that work that I felt like very attracted to. And that's how somehow we start working together. Like you are my teacher now for a while. And from my experience as a trainer who tried actually quite a lot of like methods, like from biomechanics, like those pressure stuff, like some neurologic stuff, like your work brings to depth, and it really teach you just how to stop thinking and start trusting the instincts first. Like it's sharpening the senses, and then the work happens, the changes happens in the body. So I know it sounds quite vague for somebody who's like listening to it to the first time. So that's why we have that conversation, because I believe that work is like really needed right now. And that's why I hope just at least one person who listened to that conversation will feel, okay, I can get something from that. So thank you for being here one more time. And for start, like, would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Sure. My name is Carlos Sanchez. Honestly, that's rarely how I start. I find that to be, at least in the normal scheme of things, the probably the least interesting question that I get to start. I think some partly is because we're all interesting. It's just that we become bored with our own stories, and sometimes that question, if I'm just repeating a story that I've told so many times that it's just become familiar to me. But this is the work that I do and the work that I've done for a long time, and it's not the thesis that I started with. Let's say I started from a much more reductionist place. I just wanted to know a better way to move some very practical reasons for mysterious experiences that we had in the body, um, and for ways of moving through practices that had an esoteric feel, but to do them in a way that's practical. To use, let's say, yoga, to use yoga in a way that was, good for the joints and good for strength and was a more complete practice. And I wanted to get rid of a lot of the extra, what I considered at the time, a lot of the extra and unnecessary language around mythology that went with it. And that along with needing to figure out how to help my wife, who had been in a serious car accident, had traumatic brain injury, had lost the ability to speak, and lost her memory, and post-traumatic stress disorder from all of this, physical issues, jaw issues, nervous system issues. Slowly trying to teach myself ways of helping her.
Yeah, so maybe I'm just gonna proceed with the question like now.
Sure.
So my first question is, like, when somebody comes to you for the first time, what do you look at first? What do you try to notice at first?
The most interesting thing for me at the beginning, the thing that I notice most, is why are they here? That's or at least what their perception is of why they're here. It already says something about someone if they're interested in my work. It's usually two things. One, they've already if it's just something physical that they're coming to me for, I'm not their first choice. I'm rarely anyone's first choice. I'm not, if I don't look like a physical therapist, I don't look like an osteopath, I don't look like a chiropractor, I don't speak like one. Like you said, that there's a certain amount of vagueness that's inherent, and an implicitness that's necessary in this work. That if someone's coming to me, that means that they've tried everything else, and they're still dealing with something. So that's the first thing. Another thing is similar to what happened with you, that there's something that they can't name that's interesting about what I am doing, or the ways that I'm speaking about what I am doing, that calls to a deeper place in them, but they can't describe it yet. They can't figure it out yet. And that's usually the first thing that I notice. Everyone, I tend to see three different ways of engaging with someone. And these are very basic categories that I heard a long time ago, and I've adapted them to this work. It's athletes and dancers, scientists and engineers, or mystics and poets. These are the ways that somebody engages with their body and their reality and the way of going through their life. So the athletes and the dancers are about performance. They want to move better. They want to be able to do interesting things with their bodies, or they've come to the limits of what their physical expression can do, and they want to do something about that. The scientists and engineers are more interested in the nuances of the body. They think it's fascinating. Their bodies are fascinating, and they want to know how things work physically. And then the mystics and poets are looking for a deeper connection to their internal experience and their external realities. So seeing where someone is coming from at the beginning gives me some idea of what the doorway is into them. For example, if someone comes to me and they're an athlete and a dancer, and I begin right away speaking to them about some of the more esoteric and experiential things that you and I can talk about now because you've experienced them, because you've been there,
Mm-hmm.
because your metaphors are now coming out, because there's a place where literal words do less than metaphoric words do. I mean, there's a reason that we have poetry. Poetry exists because there's certain things that need to be said that can't be said by anything else other than poetry or other than music. Music is the answer to a question that can't be verbalized. So, but to be able to be there, an experience needs to happen first. So there's an athlete and a dancer. I'll talk about performance or what's going on, like what, where are your limitations? What can't you do? Where's your pain? Those kinds of things. If it's a scientist and an engineer, I might start talking to them about how cool the diaphragms work and the internal pressures, and something like what you described in MoveMed's work, which is I find very good, and I find part of their ability to simplify language to some very big concepts to be one of the best things about them. And the mystics and poets, talking to them about an internal experience, a capacity, some mythic overlaps to our experience, and how that maps into some of our stories would be an entryway. So that would be
Yes.
what I would notice first.
Yeah, like in our work, like you use the term bribing the guards, and I really like the term. And what you explained right now, like these three types of like clients, people that come to you, like there's like different ways of bribing the guards.
Yes.
And next question is gonna be why we need to bribe the guards.
Sure. We are all limited in our perception. We only have one vantage point, one point of perception, and we filter out most of reality. And this is an adaptive process. Reality is too combinatorially explosive. There's too much information. And if everything was to come into our bodies all at once, we would freeze. We would be unable to do anything with too much overload of information, which is interestingly something that's being mapped now into our cell phones in our pockets and social media, where we have access to so much information that we don't know what to do with it. So that's how we differentiate what's important and relevant to us. And we all have those filters. It's why we all see the world slightly different, depending on our experiences, on our compensational patterns, on our traumas, on our orientations and desires. Most of the world is invisible to us. Now, it's impossible for us to see outside of what John Vervaeke, cognitive scientist, would say, outside of our salience landscape. Meaning, if something falls outside of my filters, it's invisible to me. And the guards are basically keeping out all information that doesn't already match up with my story. So in order to bypass that, and if we want to transform, deep, lasting transformation, we need a way to get past the guards. So we can think of the guards as, for most of us, the guards, especially in our modern culture, the guards are our reductionist left brain intellect, meaning we want to know how, we want to know what, we want to know what the experience is going to be, and we want it to match up within the cultural story first before we allow ourselves to do anything. The metaphor I use is that we want to know what it feels like to get wet and how to swim, but we want to do it from the shore. We want to know everything about swimming without actually getting into the ocean. And trying to convince somebody to just get in the ocean, because until you get in the ocean, you'll have no idea at all about what's going on. Getting in the ocean is going to teach you more than anything we can do on shore. But then that convincing that needs to happen needs to address the intellect somehow. So for the scientists and engineers, we need to speak to them about some of the neuroscience behind what we're doing, some of the biology and the anatomy and the embryology about why our bodies work this way. So they'll soften enough and they'll be willing to do some of the practices that are eventually going to teach them more, that are beyond even the words of anatomy to explain.
From my experience, like I can say that when I start this kind of work, like even before meeting you, like few years ago, I remember I was super analytical engineer who was also cynical and bitter.
Mm.
And I thought I understand everything, and it felt like I have every answer for everything, but I couldn't be more wrong, because like you said, I was staying on shore. It all were those protective mechanisms that basically were holding me from experiencing the life. And starting this work, so maybe that's going to be next question, like how to prepare somebody to be able to dive deeper in their own experience.
Sure. You said something very interesting. You said that you had all the answers, but you were cynical and bitter. And it's not what we're told, or it's not what we believe. We believe that there's some kind of glory in having all of the answers, in like analytical reasoning, intellect, that if we can just go down that path far enough, that somehow we're going to find meaning there, that we're going to find fulfillment there. And it's very confronting when that doesn't happen, when we've gotten to almost the end of that journey with how much we can know, and it feels empty. So that's helpful. And we don't look at that, we don't look at those things as gifts anymore, but those places of pain, emotional pain, or even external pain. I mean, these are important messages for change. That's why we change. Very rarely does someone change without pain, without some kind of pain or massive discomfort. So those are gifts. Those things are gifts. So when you said how to prepare someone for this work, we all have some kind of pain that's trying to guide us towards that which we could be if we were everything that we could be. If we answered properly, if we fulfilled, let's say, if we inhabited ourselves to our fullest capacity, if we oriented ourselves correctly, what would that look like? And every time that we deviate from that, there's a discomfort. There's a nagging something that doesn't feel quite right. The difficulty is in our modern culture, our technologies aren't built to understand that, or to raise the volume of it so we can orient ourselves. Our modern technologies are mostly based on how to numb, how to turn that down, how to distract, how to move away from that. And that's possibly the most difficult thing. It's very difficult to convince someone that doesn't realize they have a problem that they have a problem. And that's very left brain, the left hemisphere. And again, when I'm referencing hemispheres, I'm referencing mainly the work of Ian McGilchrist, a long body of work that he has. And we have two different ways of perceiving the world. And the left brain is the analytical, symbolic, represented world that can hyper focus and manipulate resources and take the world apart and put it back together. It's a very machine, an inanimate way of looking at the world, and it serves a purpose. The right hemisphere, however, experiences a living, processing, moving, animate reality that responds to us. It doesn't see the world as parts, and it's the more, let's say, it's the more complete way of looking. There's thinking of ourselves as parts. There was no parts that put us together. We weren't in pieces somewhere and someone connected us. There's something else that happens. There's something presential, let's say, that happens where we unfold, where we infold and we unfold, and it's this movement that's continuous, that it's very difficult. It's some of the questions that I give people when I start working with them. It's such a difficult question to even say where you begin. Like, what's the definition of you? What's the beginning? When could you say there was no marching and then there's a marching? Like, where is that place? It's because there is no point where the continuous flowing of something that was older than we are and something that will continue far after we're gone. So where to intervene in that is impossible to say. Now, the preparation of this work is strange, but it's a discomfort with the stories that we've been told, with our experience of ourselves. Jung said that we all walk in shoes that are too small for us. That we all walk in shoes that are too small for us. And there's a certain point in our lives, multiple points in our lives, where we have to confront that. And if when it happens too young, the story of Parsifal that I know that you've read, it, for those that have heard it, the story of Parsifal coming into the.
So yeah, sorry for technical problems. Like,
Oh, don't worry. Yeah, there's.
uh, yeah,
I can
let's
I can
just
I can
yeah,
just
you can
continue from there.
yeah. So
So
please do, please do. I'll just check if recording. Yeah, it's being recorded, so you can
sure.
keep on
So I'll
continuing.
just I'll just start from the shoes thing. So um, Jung made a statement that we all walk in shoes that are too small for us. And there's certain moments in our lives, if we're lucky, that we have that realization that there's something uncomfortable about the way that we see ourselves and the way that we're experiencing our lives. Uh, if it happens too young, it's like Parsifal coming onto the Grail Castle, where he had the gift of seeing something, but he was too immature to integrate it to any real transformation. And that happens when those are too young. If someone comes to me and they're very young, um, I'll still help, and especially if it's some kind of physical thing that they need. But the chances that they're going to be able to integrate some of the deeper things that we've talked about are low, just because there's a certain maturity that needs to happen in order for someone to be ready um, for for that kind of transformation. It sounds difficult in our modern times, but the pain has to reach a certain crescendo. It's like we need to hit dead ends enough times where we realize that the answers that we're being fed from other sources are not sufficient. Uh, Prior to that, I could say all I want about, if following this path that has been laid out in modern times is not going to give you the connection to your body. Doing something like, let's say, old school physical therapy exercises are not going to give you the deeper connection that you're looking for. Unless someone has tried that, it's difficult. Once someone has tried that and has experienced pain and it hasn't worked, they become a little bit more open to trying something else. Once they've attempted to go through life and follow the paths that they were told. So, you don't need myth, you don't need, stories, narratives don't serve. These are all extra things. What you need is a logical, rational, bent on your life, and just follow the steps. Well, once someone has done that for a little while and they're like, well, I'm following the steps, I've gained some external success, but that's short-lived and it's not giving me the sense that I thought that it would. Again, they're more open to something happening. So the preparation is already inherent in in the deeper layers of our psyche, at least, let's say, to keep the language a little bit more direct. Like we're already primed for teleology, meaning we want to move towards something. We want a way of seeing ourselves and our existence as hierarchical, meaning we're moving towards a greater connection. We're moving towards something that is greater than the I that I am right now.
Mm. Again, I can share my perspective on that stuff. I start working as a trainer like 10, 11 years ago. And I I start pain was the genesis of that. I was just looking for a solution to fix my pain. And the method that I worked with was already seemed for me like super cool for the moment. It was like some biomechanical stuff. And very quickly it looked I'm quite talented with that stuff. I could help like with different cases that more experienced practitioner couldn't. But then like it just stopped at some point. It just stopped. I couldn't like go further. I even like became like I felt like I'm not as good as I was on the beginning.
Mm.
And then, next years of my practice, like I broke my body, I got broke like emotionally, and I had to experience, now looking from perspective, I had to experience like really a lot of pain, really a lot of struggles. And I had to hit the wall so many times to finally get that inside realization, okay, like I don't want to do it anymore. I experienced enough from that perspective. And then like different kind of works showed before my on my path. And that's
Mm.
how I met you as well. And what you're saying, that we can be like we have to experience the pain. We have to go through that path. Like it's not popular, but it builds something. It's I feel it's building something in me. And again, when I work with myself, when I work with people, or just when I live, when I experience life, the things that I thought I understand in the past, I can see now how I was mistaken. How now it's like it's there's an ease of experience and doing stuff. There's like if somebody doesn't want to listen now for like this higher order stuff, let's say it's just your autonomic functions of body leads you instead of like that prefrontal cortex or like left brain thing, and the experience of life totally changes, and satisfaction also like really grows, because like we stop I stopped judging like if something is good or bad. It's just the experience of life, and there's like value in most of it. But I wanted to ask next question with that one, because you mentioned Percival's story, and I wanted to ask, what was your favorite story as a child? And then I wanted
Mm.
to ask you why stories are so important.
Sure. Mm. Mm. Now you said that Parsifal, so that reminded me of something that you said. Um, it's when you were younger, you were too dumb to know how ignorant you are.
Yeah,
And when you become older, you're smart enough to know how ignorant you are. And that's a
yeah,
difference. That's a difference. That's the Socratic, that's Socrates' statement, right? The only thing that I know is that I know nothing. But that kind of wisdom comes from thinking that you know, thinking that you know, thinking that you know, and just getting to the point of just realizing how little you used to know when you thought that you know, and how big and expansive the world in front of you is, where you start developing a bit of humility and working with the body. That's massively important. Thinking that someone's going to come to us and we're going to fix them, that we're going to give them the perfect rotational map in order for all of their stuff to go away. I mean, we're dealing with life itself, with consciousness itself, just coalesced and condensed in front of us. Something ancient that's been unfolding for, I don't know, infinity, and to think that somehow I did 4 years of physical therapy work and I'm gonna fix them, or I've been working with the body for 10 years and I'm gonna do this. And every time that you put your finger somewhere, something happens over here, and then you put your finger over here and something happens over here, and we're constantly chasing this. I mean, I'm bringing this up because this is a reminder of my process in this work, where I was thinking, well, I can do this. And it's like, okay, well, what if I know about fascia? Okay, well, what if I know about the nervous system? Okay, well, what if I know about bones? Okay, what if I know about the ocular system? Okay, what if I know about mythology? Okay, what if I know about, and it was just another thing. And every time that I would know about something else, it didn't get smaller, it got bigger. And my awe increased, but my sense of my smallness also increased. That I felt myself just in constant awe of what was in front of me. So then from there, the conversation started to become, well, how can I relate to this? How can I support this? How can I become a gardener?
Hmm.
Where I don't understand all the practicalities of how life is happening in front of me and how plants are growing, but I can water. I can make sure that the sun hits them at a certain time of day. I can make sure that there's nothing in the way of them growing. I can try to understand what's best for that, and I can help cultivate that or caretake that without thinking that the hubris of I am somehow the reason that that plant is what that plant is. And that Parsifal story is part of that at the beginning. So going back to your question, my favorite stories growing up, all stories, especially mythological stories. The Arthurian legends were big for me, and although I left it for a while, stories that were meaningful and deep and mysterious. So the mythological stories had that. The stories of our Western tradition had that. Stories of ancient Greece, even stories of our traditional canon, biblical stories, especially the old ones. Hindu stories were fascinating, but fairy tales, we call them now fairy tales, but these mythic stories that now we're given these same stories, but they're very pacified. Even if you look at the old Disney stories, they're a little uncomfortable. I mean, the story of Snow White is a little uncomfortable. I had you, one of the things that I had you do one time was the story of Pinocchio. It's
Yeah.
uncomfortable. It's not a soft kid story. Well, they animated it, and there's some cool stuff, and there's a cricket, and there's a donkey, and children can watch this, but it felt a bit of twisting in my body as I would watch those stories, and that tension between I like the story, but I feel uncomfortable from it. Hansel and Gretel, I mean, another one that was, what is this? I understand what it's saying intellectually, but what it's doing beneath my skin and beneath the dark recesses of my psyche is something else. And that dynamic was always fascinating to me. Stories about werewolves and vampires,
Mm.
some kind of these deep stories. And I was terrified as a child, very scared child. So I would have nightmares, but I couldn't help myself. I would have nightmares about werewolves, and I would want to read about werewolves and the psychology of transformation. And I didn't realize that. I had no language for that at the time. But all of these stories of something deep within us that is true. I mean, vampire stories are true. Now, again, we can decide what truth is, but true in detail and true in pattern are two different things. But vampiric qualities, transformational qualities from the inside, um, dark, animalistic at the edges of being able to come out, and they come out at certain points. I mean, there's realities behind these fairy tales. And even if we only want to take them psychologically, there's at least psychological truth in patterns that are impossible to illustrate in direct and literal language.
I just got really into to your answer. So when you were telling how much there is in stories, I start thinking about the vessel of the body and what does really being grounded means. And I see that that word is very often used, being grounded, ground yourself. But what it really means and what it should serve.
I think it's the capacity to hold, the capacity to hold more without immediately becoming reactive. Let's begin there because this is one of those things where it feels more like an essay. And when I mean an essay, I mean writing to figure out what is it that we think, because it's just a word, right? Grounded, it's just a small mouth sound. That's all it is. And it's bantied around as if anybody knows what they're talking about. The same, another one that reminded me when you said that is holding space. What the hell does that mean? Hold space. To be grounded. Well, let's take the opposite. It's, to be flighty, to be lifted away from the ground, to being disconnected, let's say, from our embodied experience, from our senses, from our sensory connection to ourselves. I think that's also part of the qualities of being grounded, where it feels like instead of being up here lost in the intellect, we're back in the hummus. We're back in the body, in the ground, in the earth, this place where we come from. So the symbol of the cross is one that's fascinating to me as well. The ability to connect to our contemplations of the infinite, the capacity to hold all of these things. You mentioned the vessel. So a vessel that can hold spaciously without being drawn away. I think of this as waters moving around without being pulled or taken by the tide.
No, like during our work, like that being grounded, there's like when you instruct things, we almost always look for heaviness of the bonds. And why does it have to go through the body, like through change? Why does it have to go through the bonds? Why we look for that heaviness?
That's a great question. I think that comes back to what it means to be grounded, and this connection to physical experience as my idea of being grounded. There's a theory of embodied cognition, which I'm not going to go too deeply into, but let's just say that all experience runs through the body. As much as we want to consider abstract and intellectual ideas, everything runs through the body. Everything runs through sensory inputs. So our ability to experience ourselves within the body and to refine
I'm just gonna stop you. Sorry, I have to stop you for 5 seconds. Sure. I'm trying to do something about the internet because we are lagging. So I see how that help. Sorry for. Yeah, like usually we don't have those problems when we had our calls, and today. Interesting. Okay, please continue. It should be better right now, I hope, with internet.
Sure. So along with my idea about, or my thoughts on the sense of grounding that we speak of, but we're not sure what it means, it's this capacity to feel as if we're inhabiting our physical experience. So all cognition comes through the body. It comes through the senses. It's impossible to disconnect ourselves from that. And that's one of the issues, especially now with some of the research in intelligence. One of the things that's coming to light is that embodiment is a quality, a necessary quality of intelligence that we were unaware of before, that we can't have true intelligence being disembodied. So that connection to our senses is primary, our connection to our weight, our connection to our interoception, what it feels like on the inside. Because I say a lot that the quality of our movement is directly related to the quality of our sensory inputs, meaning we can't change or transform what we can't feel. So feeling comes first in this work, in my mind. So the feeling of our heaviness, of here I am, here's what this is, and I'm not somewhere out here disconnected in some of our least helpful metaphors of modern times, our brains as computers and our bodies as machines. That, I'm not my body. I'm this little man or little woman that's sitting somewhere in here, and I'm driving this disconnected, icky thing that I need to take into the mechanic and, take it to get fixed. I'll leave it there for a little while. they'll replace some parts and then they'll give it back to me. That's an image that doesn't serve. One of the greatest disconnections that we have in modern times, which has led to so many of the pathologies that we're seeing, is our disconnection from nature. And nature can be seen as two things. It can be seen as the out there, the forest, the trees, the sunshine, the air. But our most intimate connection to nature, to the natural world, is this. This is of that stuff. This is just as mysterious, even though it feels like it's familiar because we see it all the time. It's just as mysterious. It's an internal landscape of infinite depth that just so happens that even that, you could see how there's a separation. I inhabit it. Like even within our language, it's impossible to come to terms with what that means. Well, who is I and what is the thing that I'm inhabiting? It's the work that we've done and the work in fluidUs. We talk about the I, not I, and the other, not other, where we're othering and we're eyeing, meaning that we're trying to figure out what this relationship is between what I consider I to be, the familiar I, and this mysterious other thing that I am also. So how to bring those together in a real visceral experience is turning our senses back in on themselves. So taking it from out there and abstract to in here and felt. So the heaviness, the feeling of the bones, even the stories and the metaphors, it's a way to start to bring that inside.
Yes, like during our practices, I can see that the more I allow myself to really yield to the heaviness of my bones, it's like a cleansing process. So everything that I was holding onto to not yield, it's not just my physical body. It's not just the restriction of that I don't know, my neck is like too tensed. It's all those masks of my personalities that I created, are all those emotions that I didn't let myself to feel, are all those moments that I basically didn't allow myself to be me. It's all carried in the body, and the more I really get into that, something starts to change. And that change is not only like a new habit. It doesn't come from making a new habit. It comes from, I don't want to do a certain thing anymore. I feel that I want to start doing it other way. And that's how the new habit is being created, like from the inside. So from here, could you tell, what do you understand as true healing?
That's good. It's a good question. It's a very good question. And there's something that you said about everything that you hold, and this is also unpopular in our modern times, because we want to tell everybody that they're good just the way that they are. That yes, you're good. Nobody believes that. That's why it's spoken so loud, because nobody believes that. And why should you? How do you know? What have you done? I mean, these are serious questions. What has your body been asked to do? We've flattened something that was. It's difficult to use. I don't want to use this word. It's too overdone. But let's say it's inherently soulful or spiritual. I mean, these words of, well, I'm going to go work out. I'm going to biohack. I'm going to work on my self-development. I mean, there's already a narcissistic kind of feeling to them, because they're like vanity metrics. Like looks maxing is something, that they're, doing all of these things, but what's it for? For you to look better. I mean, we're bypassing something that was real and inherent, meaning that we didn't go to work out because we wanted to look good or we wanted to fit into that shirt, or these were things that we did because we needed to confront reality in a certain way. We needed to hold to a certain amount of values. We needed to serve those that were dependent on us. We needed to protect. These were the reasons that we would train to carry that which needed to be carried when the time came. I mean, that's what training was, and it had a very different feeling. And we would put ourselves to the fire. And after we put ourselves to the fire, then we would know. We would know, not think, not someone had to tell us, pat us on the head and tell us, well, you're good just the way you are. Wow, what a good job you did. You know that you did because your family was still alive at the end of the day. You know that you did because your community was protected. You know that you did because you held on to your integrity in the face of difficulty and challenge when it would have been very easy to not do that. I mean, these were the things that would hold us together. Alex Hormozy said something like, uh, collect undeniable evidence that you are who you say that you are. Collect undeniable evidence that you are who you say that you are. Not verbal evidence, but that you've done what you say that you've done, that you do what you say you're going to do, that what you believe is seen in how you act and engage in the world. And now, some of the things that you were speaking of was cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance is when we're confronted with a reality that doesn't match with our story. And then something's got to give, because the discomfort and the anxiety that comes from cognitive dissonance is too much to bear. So we have to deal with that somehow, so everything is aligned once more. So there's two things that we can do. One is we can either change how we see the world, change our stories. We need to adjust and adapt to fit in with the new information. Or the easier way, deny or justify, so that the new information, we can push it away as untrue. It doesn't match up with my truth. I can distract myself and continue to believe the way that I believed and push away that way of seeing reality. This is the way that most people in modern times and most practices are guiding us to do, which is away from what I consider healing. Healing is when there's a greater and greater alignment between the inner voices or the aspirational self or the fullness of what I could be and my efforts and orientation towards that. Now we're on the process of healing, but we can say healing, but I'd say moving towards wholeness, moving towards completeness, let's say. So healing is moving towards fulfilling what I could be. And that's going to be different for everybody. If you're born without arms, and you're looking at healing as having hands, having your own hands again, that's the wrong story. But the fulfillment of what you could be if you were everything that you could, and moving in the direction and the orientation of how do I fully inhabit this life, this position, this vantage point, this orientation. How can I inhabit that fully? I'd say that's maybe that's the beginning of a definition.
Yes, it's now comes to me one word: context. Context. That when we look at modern training, the context seems not to be the best one. It's what you said about how our environment was basically orienting us, like for what is right, for what was bringing us. What do you feel that our environment is orienting us right now? And what is our greatest weapon to not get lost?
Consumption and distraction is what's happening right now. So uh, distracting us away from the discomforts that are the gifts that can orient us towards fulfillment, meaning, and the healing in the way that I just spoke about it. And hungry ghosts, by hungry ghosts, I mean continuous consumption of those things that we hope will fulfill us, but that don't. So the more that we're distracted and moved away from our orientation in the direction that we should be going, the hungrier we become and the more uncomfortable we become that something is wrong. So the more that we have to fix that somehow. And we fix that somehow by, well, we're told all the time how to fix that. We're told by this advertisement and that advertisement and the other thing. It's like, well, here are the answers to what you feel. You feel a little bit off because your clothes are wrong. You feel a little bit off because you're not going to the gym enough. You feel a little bit off because you're a little bit heavier. And if you take this pill, you'll be less heavy, and that's going to answer your problems. No, actually, you feel a little bit off because other people think that obesity is bad, but obesity is actually good. So let's convince everybody that obesity is okay, and then that's going to solve the problem. So we're over here consuming all of these ideas without, like you said, context, orientation. We don't know what life is about anymore. And to try to answer what life is about, what the proper orientation and direction is, what would it mean to live a good life? I mean, these questions aren't even seriously taken on as necessary anymore. We just assume that, whoever gets the most stuff wins. And that's how we've been orienting ourselves. And then we want to externally blame, right? We want to blame capitalism, or we want to blame the Western world, or we want to blame the influencer that's doing this, or the social media algorithm. But these are symptoms of something that began long before them. This is just accelerated, something that we've been moving towards for a very long time, towards let's say like an event horizon where we're accelerating faster and faster and faster. There's a pessimistic thought that continues to occur to me, and it's pessimistic in one sense, but also oddly inspiring in another, because this isn't the first time that we've been near something like this, and it doesn't say that this is what will happen and it'll be a huge external thing either. But there was a moment in our history in the Western world where, I mean, thought and considering the deeper questions and the arts and the sciences and relating to the world and philosophy and psychology, and these were important matters, and these were the most important matters, and everything else would serve these matters. Basically, you would eat and do these things, and you would even eat in a way, it's like, well, what's the best way to eat? What's the best way to enjoy the pleasures of life without getting lost from the biggest orientation? Because I want to be as fulfilled as I can be. I want to complete what my point, the point of me, is in this infinite game. And then something happened, and then the dark ages came, and I think back and I wonder if there were those in the corners back then saying, well, what's our orientation now? How do we stop this from happening? How do we see ourselves walking towards the end of a cliff? Can we stop it? And obviously the answer for them was the answer turned out to be no. But what did happen is that there were certain bastions, certain little conclaves where that which was important was kept and preserved and saved, and that flame was protected for when the time would come that it would be necessary again, that the flames could come alive once more. And they did. And then the Renaissance came, and there was this revival on like all these ideas and thoughts and the reasons behind them. So I wonder in these times if we're headed for some kind of event horizon of and what that would look like. Does it look like anything external, or does it look as just we all get to the point where, have you ever seen the movie Wall-E?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know where at the end they're all just on their floating chairs and they're all heavy and they don't even speak to each other anymore, and the machines are basically just keeping them, you know, swirling around, and nobody's questioning anything because they're too busy with their big Slurpees and whatever's on the television at that time
Yeah,
to ask.
I remember that scene. Yeah.
I see it. We see it now, right? I mean, just go anywhere. Like, see, instead of the chairs, and we see, you know, a bunch of people
Smartphones.
sitting at
Yeah.
the same table and everybody has their heads down, and physically you know, you and I both work with the body, so physically we're seeing forward head position. We're literally seeing an evolution on a micro scale, but the evolution of the compensation of the body to be able to handle uh, working with the technology. Basically, we're contorting our physical bones and structures in order to more readily absorb and consume what the technology is giving us. That's a scary thought. And now what that's going to lead to, I'm not sure. But you asked what the greatest weapon um, is against that. And it's the capacity, first of all, to cultivate, to take back our attention, to cultivate our attention, our capacity to attend to something for longer than 3 seconds, to be able to wrestle with ideas. And I mean wrestle, I mean not who was right the fastest. I mean, I'm going to sit with this and I'm going to write about it. And you're in strength and ritual right now, so we haven't done that yet. But one of the works is one of the homeworks is going to be to read an essay every day, not
Mm.
short form, not an Instagram caption, but an essay, a long essay. And then eventually the work is going to be to write an essay. And by writing, I mean sit down there with something that you're not sure of, an idea that you have, and try to write down exactly what you believe about it, and then go against your own idea and try to write why you're wrong. And then you're basically trying to
Mm.
think by writing and challenge and wrestle with this idea. And what you're left with after that, first of all, it's the capacity to attend to an idea long enough for it to transform something inside you and for it to be worth something for you. And second, that amount of attention, to be able to take that attention and bear it onto the things that you need to bear, because someone can want transformation, but if they can only pay attention to me for 3 seconds, the chances that any transformation is going to be possible is very low. So our capacity for attention coming in through embodied cognition, which is what we have, and we used to have these built in to our societies, built into our culture. I mean, we spoke about them like ritual. There were ritual and myth. Rituals were things that we didn't debate. They weren't part of our willpower or our discipline. They were part of our identity. We weren't debating them anymore. We did them because we did them, because we've always done them, because the community does them, and because there was a certain amount of shame and ostracization and isolation if we didn't do them. Like, what will people think? But that was an adaptive shame. It kept us from falling off of the edges when things got rough, when we would get too distracted and we would start to get into whatever depressive state. The cure for that depressive state a lot of times was a reorientation. So you did the practices, whether or not you felt like them. The day felt a little bit different. And then at the end of the week, you would do the communal weekly practices. And then things clarified a little bit more. And then seasonally, you would do your pilgrimage. And then we would go back to our daily life. We get confused, distracted, but we would reorient with ritual. And these were technologies. And we've within our modern times, our resistance to taking these things on as serious and intelligent ways of being that served an important purpose to what it means to be human was important and lost.
Yeah, I have interesting question. Like, if we're gonna look at our modern lifestyle, like average modern lifestyle today, how would you, in context of religion, how would you see our practices today? What are we doing? What is our pray? What is our pilgrim? What is our ritual?
Yeah.
Because they're present.
They're present. They're always present, and that's another thing that we don't realize. Ritual is always there. Ritual and worship is always there. It's what we worship. So we talk about, again, in the work, we talk about attention as a sacred act. I mean, it's the most sacred act. It's the most prayerful act is what we attend to. And we can say all that we want, but we worship what we pay the most attention to. That's how we worship. That's that might be the deepest meaning of prayer. It's separating time to attend to that which is greater. That's what prayer is. It's that's why it's worship. It's we're deciding in this moment to contemplate the infinite. Let's say that's the prayer. So we're constantly praying, we're constantly worshiping. And right now what we're worshiping, okay, and I'm thinking if I should use the word, if I should contextualize it first. Let's use the word. We're we're worshiping Luciferian processes. We're in, if we want to contextualize it within our Western mythology, we're worshiping the satanic or Luciferian, better than satanic. Satan is a different etymology, but Luciferian. And what Lucifer was in the stories, Lucifer was the glorification of the intellectual self as the highest thing worth valuing. Think about that. So my intellect, my ability to know everything and to guide my own life selfishly, biohacking, self-development. I need to get the most resources. I know what's best for me, my truth. Whoever wins with the most, whoever dies with the most toys wins. Look maxing. How many followers do I have? All of these things are the glorification of intellect over the deeper mysteries of what I am. We spoke a little bit about the familiar I, the I of my intellect, the I that's familiar to me being this much, and then all of this other stuff that's dark and mysterious and ancient and connected and oriented outwards, the I that I could be, the deeper layers of my psyche, my relation to consciousness in the external world as mysterious, that which has been here longer than I have been, the collective thinking of humanity itself as a species, whatever it is that drew us out from single-celled organisms to larger animals, to primates, to thinking, contemplating creatures, whatever it is that moves with that level of intelligence that's greater than I am. The resistance to thinking that there's anything larger than my own intellect and my capacity to know and to try to manipulate reality, that's Luciferian. That's Lucifer and his intellect, the angel of light. Light as the metaphor for knowing and knowledge. That knowing that challenged the mystery, that challenged the deeper layers of that which I must relate to, even in the body. I mean, if I want to try to overcome and overtake this, there's an intelligence in my body of how it fires neurons, how electricity moves through me, how cells die and are reborn, how waste products move through me, how the chemical reactions in the gases that I breathe in. I have no idea how to do that. Like if you were to tell me, well, now you're in charge, I die in a second. So there's a level of intelligence even within what I call I that's outside of my capacity, that not even the best neuroscientist or biologist in the world knows how to do any better than you do. No neurologist can fire his neurons better than you. So there's something about that. And the disconnection from that reverence to the mystery, that reverence to that which is greater, our cynicism, our sarcasm, our minimization of things like, well, love is just a chemical reaction in the brain. Well, okay. Well, I mean, what does that even say? But we think that we can because we can manipulate words, that somehow we understand reality. And that is the mistake and the altar that we're praying at right now.
Yes. We have all mysteries of universe in our bodies. We are the universe itself. Yeah. Like, and you know, that's accepting that we won't ever understand it, and it will always be a mystery. It's a relief.
But it's also a responsibility.
It's
And
responsibility as well.
that's where the difficulty lies, and that's where the resistance lies. Because if I was to take that on seriously, um, hold on, one of my babies is crying. Can you hear? Can you hear
Yeah.
her from there?
No,
Okay, let her.
no.
Oh, you
Yeah.
can't hear it. Okay.
No.
So the fact that it's not only a beautiful gift and a relief, but it's also a responsibility. Meaning if I was to take that seriously, that means that there's also something that I owe. And that's what the stories speak about sacrifice, about orientation, about becoming subservient and in service of something that is greater than oneself. And that's what is so strongly resisted, that there's values that are above just what I want to be true, that there's a level of honesty and truth and integrity that I am beholden to and I am not in control of.
Yes. What you spoke about our religion, what we worship today, it's we really want to cut off from religion, but it's not taking responsibility because, as you said, religion, and it's in our nature, it's part of us, it's gonna happen anyway. If we're gonna say that sun doesn't exist, it won't make sun disappear. And same gonna be with religion. So that's why I believe this taking responsibility is just first step, because it's so easy not to take responsibility. And what you told about awareness, like today I watched like very brief video of like kids in Poland in 60s, in 1960s or 70s, something like that. It was when you heard them, how they were making sentences, how the words, how they articulated the words. It sounded like so much better like than today. Like and it's like the evidence how we are losing that humanity, because which is what you told about that essay, like being able to stay on something for longer, being able to create instead of consuming. It's the essence of our humanity. So to give like very simple practice for somebody who feels, okay, I want to take care about my awareness, how to start?
It's not hard.
Hmm.
Well, let's take that back. It's not complex. It is hard. It's not complex. The difficulty and that's the problem again. We want to know how to get wet, or we want to know what wetness feels like from the shore. It's not complex. It's simple. And just because it's simple does not mean that it's easy. We want to continue to watch YouTube videos about what are the best practices. What's the best technique for me to do this thing or do that thing. And then, we want to read another book about it, and we want to find the bestseller, and we want to talk to this person over here that's got 415 different breathwork practices that they do, and one for everything. And it's dedicating a small amount of time every day to something. And that's the beginning, and it's what ritual is, and not having it be dependent on how you feel. You do because you do. It's not willpower. Willpower and discipline are the things that are necessary before it becomes identity. So it's important at the beginning, but it's a shift in identification that needs to happen, a shift in identity that needs to happen. The problem is that we have all become addicted to not doing these things and to get distracted so quickly. Anyone that's interested in truly transforming or truly helping others and just wants to do it on the weekend, or just wants to do it with one big workshop, or with a few amount of sessions, it's never going to be enough until it's installed or instilled in their daily life, in our daily lives. So it's not what you do, it's how you do it, and that it is constant, and the way that it's done is not up to debate. It can be something as simple as the breath that I know that you're going to share with everyone at the end of this practice, that even the first part of it, where it's just the smelling breath and the orientation downwards of the breath, to stay with that for 5 minutes at the beginning of the day. That's a start. And especially at the beginning of the day, because that starts to orient and clear what we want to do. And if you're someone that either reaches for your phone first thing, or feels the gravity, feels the pull of wanting to do that, that already says something about what you're worshiping. There's something about the things that we do first thing in the morning and what we worship. So that would be one. Another one, again, simple. Sit somewhere and stare at one spot without shifting your eyes for 5 minutes. That's it. That's it. And no matter what happens, your mind will want to pull you out. You're going to want to check the clock. You're going to want to, fidget and move and adjust, and just sit there for 5 minutes and look at something for 5 minutes. That's a way to start to bring in your attention, and that's a discipline, and that's a ritual. And to give the definition, I've used the word a lot. So to give context, a very simple idea of what ritual is a practice where the outer container is predictable and the inner contents are unpredictable. So the outer contents, you sit and you stare 5 minutes. Very predictable. You do this every day. You just do that. What's happening on the inside is unpredictable. What it's going to feel like today. Am I going to feel good while I'm doing it? I'm going to feel like my skin wants to get peeled off of my bones. Am I going to feel a deep connection to something greater than myself? Is it going to feel like nothing? These are the unpredictable contents. But once you have that container, now something can be poured into that container. A greater capacity for attention, a greater capacity to withstand pressure. So these ritual practices that used to reorient us, to bring them back into daily life. And this is simple, but sometimes we do need more motivation than that, more context than that, in order to do it. So it's the bribing of the guards. It's the using of the mythic stories, like what does this mean? And bringing those stories so we find ourselves, you use the word mapping, and I think mapping of the internal world, and that's a remapping of our bodies as deep and profound and infinite and complex and ancient is important, but also the realization that it matters less if Odysseus existed 5,000 years ago in the Greek world. It matters less than how Odysseus lives in you right now, how Odysseus is expressed through your psyche, through your body, through your actions. That's a much more interesting question as a way of coming closer to what the truth of myth is. An orientation towards the complexity of life that's impossible to sparse out linearly in a sentence. So that realization that these stories are living stories and they're alive in us, that our capacity to sit and stare at a wall is in the same vein as the sacrifice of Abraham. in the old stories of his son Isaac. If you look at your son as the intellect, that you're so happy of all of the things, that you've built, and all the knowledge that you've collected, and how good you are at Googling things, and all the online courses that you've done, and everything that you've collected, and you're like, yeah, look how cool this is. And then all of a sudden something in you is saying, sacrifice this. And you're like, oh, I can't do that. Like, that's the thing that I love the most. That's my intellect. And we start to resist that, instead of, sitting and staring at the wall and letting go of my idea of myself as somehow in control of the universe with all this knowledge that I possess. The capacity to sacrifice that towards another practice starts to infuse us with a broader view of what we are, who we are, a sense of reverence to a world that's been lost to us, not because it's not there, but because we've lost the ability to experience it and sense it.
Yes, like just technical thing. I don't want to hold you very long, so it's like two more
Mm.
questions, okay? And we're gonna.
Sure.
It's
Yeah,
okay
let's
for
let's
you?
I'll try to be, I'm being very verbose. I hope that's okay. I'm speaking a
Yeah.
lot. My intention was to speak less, but let's try.
Okay. So so why it is worth doing it? So if you're about to compare the state of a person that, let's say, it's okay, like with money, with I don't know, people around and stuff, with work, but he's not oriented like towards his deeper deeper path. And then you compare it like to the person that already did the work. Like what's the difference and why is it worth all that work?
Very rich people commit suicide. Very rich, very successful, very famous people with all the outer trappings of everything commit suicide. It must be something devastating to think that when you arrive at a certain level of status, that somehow you'll feel fulfilled, and then work very hard to arrive at that level, and arrive there, and then feel around inside, and there's nothing different. There's there's a small amount of time once you achieve something like that where it feels good, and then very quickly it becomes ordinary. We're very good at just making however our life is. After a certain amount of money where all your needs are taken care of, there's very little difference in the level of quality of experience of life, no matter how much more you gain after that, unless you're enjoying the process and you feel like there's some meaning to what you're doing. So there's a pain that's there. I don't need to convince someone of that pain that already exists there, when there's something more to what we are. And that's a nagging thing. I mean, very rich people are alcoholics. Very rich people can be drug addicts as well. Very rich people can be workaholics, have anger issues, anxiety. These are pains that are trying to orient us towards something more. And it's what is it that's going to give me the deepest level of fulfillment. And our stories, thousands of years worth of stories, warn us against becoming confused that somehow we're going to get enough stuff for that to go away.
Yeah, that's good motivation to start doing the work.
Yeah.
Uh, okay. So if somebody like feels that he's into that work and he would like to work with you, what are the options? Like very practical one.
There's two main options to work with me. There's the deeper work of working with me one on one, which is the kind of work that you and I do together. There's another container which is a little bit deeper than that, where there's travel involved and there's more in-person work where I go and we do an installation, meaning we measure some things, we see where they're at, baseline physical things, life things, experiential things, questionnaires, and we use that as a baseline to move from. And then I also help them orient. We do this in a day or two, and then I leave, and then we do some work online, and then I return. So there's that level of the work. There's the weekly work that you and I do, which we meet together, and then there's also practices that you're given, and orientations and ordeals to do, and initiatory practices to do. And then the third way is group work. Right now, there's an experience called Strength and Ritual, where we move from the experiential, the practices, with having that be the focus of how to engage with these practices, and then how to work with body to increase our capacities, increase our strength, because that's an important thing. It's not that I believe that strength is unimportant. On the contrary, I think the development of great physical strength and physical capacity is important, but the context is off, the why is off, the how we address it is off, the who am I in relation to it is off. So we move from the inside out, addressing the deep wisdom of the body, and becoming curators and caretakers, and challenging ourselves to hold more, to be able to carry more and more. And I don't want to give too much more away, but that group container is it. And the other probably more entry point way is I'm attempting to get better at sharing small practices online that will at least give the feeling of a different way of engaging with things like breath and movement. And maybe that's the start. Maybe that's, see what those do. If you go to my website, there's a simple practice also that you can download for free. That might be an entry point as well. But it's that jump from being distracted to doing. So the invitation is to do, to pick one thing, one practice, and do it, and then do it again tomorrow, and then the day after that, do it once more, and then see what happens. Give yourself the give yourself the time to see what happens, and see what that feels like. You could also engage with my writings and in conversations with me, and I'm happy to talk to anybody that is interested in the work, to see if it's a fit, because it's not a fit for everybody. This type of work isn't a work for tourists. It's not a work for someone that wants to do biohacking. My work has been used for that, and if that's what you want to use it for, that's fine. But the real work of this is something much more fulfilling, much more rewarding.
Yes, like, because how do I see your work? Like, how I used to see your work on the beginning, like, was that I used to look on the body like from different planes. So there was like that biomechanical plane, there was like that neurological, and there was like that psychosomatic plane. And I was like gathering that knowledge like from different fields. And it felt like I know something, but something was missing, something was off. And like you said, you're using, for example, like some of the movement techniques, like, and I did the movement courses before, and they are like super precise, and they're like touching very deep processes in our body. And it's a great method, but still, like, there's something different in the way it is experienced, like here, comparing to the way when it's just like the training itself. And that's something that here comes the question. So if you have a trainer, physiotherapist, like whatever, somebody who's working with the body, and he already have plenty of knowledge, like from different fields, and he studied like different philosophies, and he's interested in mythology, like what he can be missing, or what else he can get here.
I'll tell you a story, because I was, if you know, I mean, if you're in this work, you probably know the name Tom Myers, writer of Anatomy Trains, um, and also a great presenter. Not only his work is good, he's fascinating, has many stories to tell. So I was working with him and learning from him, and what the man can do with his hands when it comes to manipulation of fascial tissue in the body is incredible. And I was sitting with him and some of the people that he's taught. Very precise anatomy, very, you know, very intellectual, very precise anatomy. And we're going through all of these, like, this is what is here, and this is how the interstitial fluid works, and this is how you address it, and we're doing all of these very technical things with very technical language. And then they would sit with someone, and they would have their hands in the body, and there was this feeling of reverence when they were touching a body, and there was this feeling of, they would kind of look off into to the point that you want to be like, if this is all, you know, mechanical, like, look at the thing that you're doing. But they were somewhere over here, and they were part of the things that we were doing at that point was speaking through our experience. So trying to give someone else a sense of where your mind is, what you're feeling, what you're doing from all this technical stuff. And it was rarely technical, what they were talking about in those moments, which would drive the newer teachers crazy, because it's like, well, unless you've touched 1,000 bodies, you have no idea what someone is talking about at this point. But they would say things like, okay, I'm touching this, and I feel tension, so I feel like I'm too far forward in my own body, so I'm leaning back. What does that mean? Like, I'm too far forward, meaning like too prefrontal. I was trying to like put technical language on this. It's, you know, like leaning back, like the effort was there. Like I was trying to force too much. I need to let it come to me. Like something is speaking. You know, my fingers are speaking to this part of the body, and it's speaking back to me. There was a way of engaging with the work that could not be translated by purely anatomical concepts, because what was being touched was something alive and something responsive and something that was communicating back in a way that was much closer to anthropology and linguistics and uh, and psychology than it was mechanical. That there was really, it felt like meeting a tribe out in the wilderness that you come across for the first time, that didn't speak your language, and you're trying to communicate with it. And that was the sense of connecting with this part of the body. So that context of what it is that we're touching, like what it is that we're doing when we're accessing these places. How do we bridge experience to understanding? And that's where we use the word metaphor a lot. And metaphor means to bridge. It means to take something that's beyond the capacity of words and find words that can bring us across into that place. And a lot of times that left brain, especially someone that knows so much, that left brain, that over reliance on the left brain is part of the restriction to them going further and what they're capable of doing with the work. So it serves, it serves, it serves. It stops serving because it's become the master. And to rearrange that, where it's like, I have all of this knowledge, but now all of this knowledge becomes something that's in service of a greater connection, a greater relationship, a greater understanding, where the work flows through me instead of me trying to manipulate and overly control the work. So Part of it is a spaciousness where whatever tools you have become greater because your orientation becomes very different and everything becomes much deeper in what you can do. And that shift is a big shift. And someone that comes to me already with all of this knowledge, you came to me with a lot of knowledge. The jumps are much greater and much quicker because you already have the technical know-how. I don't need to explain to you what fascia is. I don't need to explain to you how joints work or, or any of those things, but giving you a felt experience of what is actually going on in your body and how to address it and how to contact it and what implicit things are happening without just always relying on the explicitness is something that the jumps that you made were very, very big.
Yes, like it feels really like magic. And my own experience with that practice is that, again, when you share it, something new is awakened in my body. And this thing is having a will of its own. And if I just put awareness to it, and yeah, it's like praying, like where it's growing, it's being like enrooted in me.
Yes.
And then things change very quickly and deeply in the body. And words are getting deepness, the deepness that they didn't have before. Like my instructions, like to people, may sound totally the same, but the result is like totally different.
Right.
And same with my body. I may be doing the same stuff during my training, but the result is like totally different. The connections are totally different. The feeling is totally different. Like something changes. And that's something that brings that deep satisfaction. Like I told before, instead of being like cynical and bitter, there's like deep satisfaction. And that's like joy of not knowing, joy of not understanding, joy of accepting the mystery of life. And that's very fulfilling. And that's like when I think about like, working with body training, like this is the most fulfilling part. It's like going for a journey every day. And every day like reaching like to some unknown lands. So that's something really pleasurable. It's just experience of life. So thank you for this conversation. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, your experience, your thoughts, and something else, something deeper as well.
Yeah.
And I wanna do a quick sum up. So to bribe some guards, maybe. If no, it's gonna be short. Like, if you felt something about it, just experience it first. Experience the practice. Do one of the simplest things. Pick the breathing practice and do it like for 1 week without expectation, without judging. And just do it with curiosity and see what's gonna happen. Like nothing else is needed to start. And it's like you said, it's not complex, it's like super simple. And then like the analytical knowledge, the rest, it's gonna come like way easier. And it was also my case. I thought I have to understand the life before I live it. And it's like totally opposite. Like all the analytical things, the language itself, it's gonna come. And if the context is met first, if the context is lived first, the thing's gonna come like way easier. So yes, so maybe it's not summing up, but that's what came from my mouth right now, like for ending it. So thanks again for the talk. And like, would you like to add something?
There was just what Pascal said. So Pascal was one of the most prolific writers. He wrote volumes and volumes and volumes and volumes of words. And when he was asked, he said that he writes and writes and writes in the hopes that someone will go and light a candle. Meaning, it's not in the words. The words are an attempt to bribe the guards, to inspire something in order for someone to take on the practice, to return to a connection within the physical and an orientation towards that which is most meaningful. So that's all. It's simpler than we think it is. We're more complex. Our justifications and our ways of avoiding the simple are complex, but it's nothing more than a decision to move forward with something, and it's available to anyone.
Okay, thank you. I think it's a good point to finish it here. So
Thank you, Marcin. Thank you. That
thank
was
you,
interesting with
Carlos.
all the technological difficulties we got through it. Go ahead and sit in a way that your bones are heavy. Allow your breath to slow. Let the sense of your breath drift back behind your nose, behind the bones of your face. And as you breathe in a way that instead of just drawing in air, you're trying to smell the air around you in a subtle way. So it's almost invisible from the outside. Let this breath become long. Let the air that you're pulling in swirl in the cave of your skull. Allow the orientation of your breath to be downwards. So your inhales and your exhales are pressing down, making you heavier. Let your groins become deeper. Now imagine with the power of your breath, you're trying to touch your pubic bone from the inside, trying to press into your pubic bone from your breath. Maintain this heaviness, and from the inside, from pressing down with the breath, attempt to get as tall as possible, as long as possible, as if your center is lengthening up through the crown of your head, separating your ribs from your pelvis. Keep the length and allow the weight of your diaphragm to drop, the weight of your belly to drop. On your next exhale, press your exhale down. Keep emptying. Press down with your exhale, down with your exhale. Stay long. Keep emptying until there's nothing left to exhale. And then stay long as you let the inhale pour back in on its own. And then fill as much as you can. And now again, press the exhale down. Stay long as you press the exhale down. Empty, pressing the weight of it down into your pelvis, down into the ground. When there's nothing left, allow the breath to pour back in. And fill yourself with that breath. And now once more, press down, 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 empty, 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 empty. When there's nothing left, let the breath pour back in. Allow the natural tides of your breath to return. Notice the sensations inside your body and imagine that you can turn the volume up. Get a sense that your bones themselves are swelling with the tides of your breath. Keep the length of your body, separate the pelvis and the ribs. Drop the weight of the belly and the diaphragm. Take a strong inhale. Another inhale on top of that. One more sip on top of that. And as you hold it, stay as long as you can and press the weight of it down. Press the weight of your heart and kidneys down into your pelvis. And take one more strong sip. And exhale, pour the waters out. Now again, allow the tides of your breath to return to their natural state. Imagine that you can listen with your skin, both externally and internally. With each hair, with each cell. Again, allow the volume to get turned up. And when you're ready now, allow your eyes to open.
Okay, so thank you for doing the practice. It's gonna be attached at the end of the video. And now I wanna share my experience of that practice. Like, yeah, it's gonna be extra addition. So this practice, we do it now for 9 months with some breaks, and it's always different. And it's always more intense, but intensity shows with some subtleness often. This time, the awareness of the skin from the inside, something very new. It was like that internal map of my ribs, my collarbones, like being aware where fascia, muscles, whatever, that internal structure is pulling me. And then that pressures, they really feel heavy from the inside. It's something that allows me to swell from inside and gets fuller each time. And the fuller I get, I also get more aware where are my holes. Where are my limits of my structure, of my senses. So I know that for the first time, experience maybe, depending where you are, it may differ, but it's just about trusting the process here. And yeah, that's what I wanted to share and add.